I'm Nurse Jessica Seitz, along with Nurse Erica. We're Nurses Uncorked, the podcast that takes nursing facts with nursing comedy and makes a little cocktail out of it. Hey guys, welcome back to Nurses Uncorked. So excited again this week. We're still going strong on our streak of uninterrupted podcasts. You've got Nurse Erica here with myself, Nurse Jessica Seitz, and we have one of our first guests back again this week, which makes me so happy because
back by popular demand.
Yes, that was one of our first most listened to podcast was when we had
Was it
Masshole.
really?
Yeah.
Aww.
People loved that episode.
Thank you for having me back. I appreciate it.
Yeah, Masshole McGuido is who we have back, one of our fellow social media influencers and advocates in nursing. And we are going to get into the signs and symptoms of nursing burnout and talk again about workplace violence because it's not any better, guys. It really hasn't improved since we last were here.
No.
And
that sounds so terrible to laugh at, but
I know, but you
have
almost
to laugh.
What else are you gonna do? You know, it's Friday. What else is gonna happen? People are pulling out guns and stuff. You know,
yeah,
right? Masshole,
right?
Yeah. And we're gonna start this off with letting our friend Masshole do our drink of the week on Nurses Uncorked. Take it away, buddy.
Cocktail of the week. So. For cocktail of the week, I've decided to name this cocktail the patient satisfaction score.
I like it.
That's great. That's
perfect.
Great.
So what it is basically so me and William are big into like Hennessy and Monster. The combination is beautiful, but this is a little different. So we have a Hennessy cognac.
Nice.
Okay.
Nice.
Then we're gonna add to that. So let's put that in first. We'll put our Hennessy in. You girls like Hennessy?
Any hard liquor makes me take my clothes off and do bad things. So,
we like that. So we're doing about that much. I don't know.
Okay.
A couple fingers. You know what I mean? It's been a rough week. So we're going to do that.
Couple fingers,
right? Then we're going to do the Bacardi spiced rum.
Okay.
Now this, the reason I chose this is a tie-in to Nina, because Nina did coquito on your other podcast. And this is one of the key ingredients in the coquito. So I figured let's stream it, We're going right from the holiday cocktail. So all of us have left, or most of us, if you have, Latino, Spanish, Puerto Rican, whatever, you have probably your leftover from your coquito. So we're going to add that.
Yeah. Okay.
So we're going to do, I don't know, another little finger. That's about a cute little finger. Yeah, right about there. That looks good. Then... This is the thing. So I have to admit, I was not super aware of this particular tonic. In Boston, we call it tonic. Y'all probably call it soda, pop, whatever, but we call this stuff tonic. This is the Cola Champagne Soda.
Cola with a K. K-O-L-A.
With a K. It tastes like a champagne tonic. Like it's really, really great. So we just add that. We add this to this little baby. Whoa. She's getting full.
All right.
I want you guys to know that aren't watching the video. These measurements are all, you just go for it. There is no exact measurement. You just whatever makes you happy. Just pour the ingredients.
Italians don't measure when we cook. It's like a pinch of this. Actually, really quickly, funny story. When we're looking at my grandmother's old recipe cards, everything says eyeball it to your taste. Eyeball it. There's no real numbers in any of them. So anyway, salute. Chantawan. 100 years of good luck to you, ladies.
Felicidades. Cheers. All that stuff.
So that's what you say in Italian. You say salute and Chantawani, and it's like good luck for 100 years. So
we say hija puta cingada. No, we don't say that, actually. That's bad. Don't say that, people. You don't even want to know what I said.
And we're calling that drink what? The patient satisfaction score?
This is the patient satisfaction score.
Very nice. Very nice. I love it.
So this is the drink we're going to have after you get the results. After you get the results of the patient.
When your manager pulls you in the office and says, I need to talk to you about your HCAP scores, you need to go home and have like 3 of these drinks.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm not going to lie. It doesn't seem like much, but it's a little.
It's 3
What did you
kinds
say,
of
Jessica?
alcohol.
You take your clothes off?
It's a kick.
Jessica.
It's a good kick.
Yeah, but it's good. What's scary about this cocktail is you don't really taste the liquor. So it's like,
oh Lord, that's bad.
You don't taste
That's
it.
dangerous.
So
yeah.
But yeah, I'm sure you girls could find this, but this is everything. It's absolutely delicious. So that is my
good.
cocktail of the week. I'm so excited I got to do it. I've
Thank
never
you
got to do
for
a cocktail
sharing
of the week.
that. Yeah. Love it. I want to do a call to action for anybody that's listening to this podcast. If you know of any, not even just a nurse, any other healthcare worker that has actually taken their lives, somebody that you've worked with, I want you to comment and say, yes, I have. If you are somebody listening to this, again, not just a nurse, any healthcare worker that has experienced nursing burnout, I'm asking a call to action. Will you comment on this podcast and say, yes, I have. Yes, I've been there. Yes, I'm still there. Because this is prevalent. This is very important. And this is a call to action because I don't want people to feel like they're alone. I want people to understand that there are tons of other people going through this. And if you are able to, and you don't fear somebody else reading your comment or something, I would really appreciate if you could comment so that other people know that they're not alone.
And
I agree. We don't need more Tristans. We need to keep an eye out for each other. You look at our coworkers, really look at them.
Correct.
Are they okay? Try to be that CNA for the one nurse that reached out to me, and because no one else is going to save us. No one else.
Listen, let me say, I know somebody that's taken their life, and I've experienced nursing burnout. What about you, Erica? Do you know anybody
Yeah. And anyone that's been to any of my my talks, I tell a very personal story. A very good friend of mine she took her own life. We went to nursing school together. We started as new grads together, and she was targeted by our manager, as was I. I left. She stayed, and she took her own life just a couple of years into her career.
What about you, Matthew?
Unfortunately, I know a handful of people that have left the party.
Isn't that crazy that just the three of us right here can all answer yes and yes to both of those questions?
Mm-hmm.
But you know what's even more sick? Look how we are about it.
Yeah.
That's what's even more
sick.
It's so
common. It's so common.
It's so common to us that it's like, I do want to say too that, also you can always, anyone who's having these type of feelings can always dial 988 on their phone, and it'll put you directly in touch with, the national hotline. So
thank you for saying that. Yes, that is very important. Of course.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Erica, you had something you were gonna share tonight, or something you said you were gonna get into. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm going to read something. It's a little bit lengthy, but it's important and needs to be shared. This came to me recently from a follower that I'm going to keep anonymous, but it is regarding the Methodist Dallas double homicide in the labor and delivery unit. Was it 2022, right? I think it was October 2022. And it was a blog entry.
Right.
Yeah, a blog entry by an ICU nurse practitioner with a firsthand account of the aftermath of that day of the shootings. And we should say trigger warning for this episode. There will be some things discussed that could potentially be triggering. And so she was there that day and posted a very kind of prophetic, well, you'll hear it, blog, and was very quickly thereafter pressured from above to take down the blog. Fortunately, some people were smart enough to keep some screenshots of it. So I want to share this with you. Saturday, October 22nd, 2022. I am okay. When I got to work this morning, my pen wasn't working. I went in search for a new one and had a fun, ridiculous conversation with the unit secretary about the value of the pen, rounded on my patients, ate a banana, ended up in a patient's room later, and over the course of the morning, the patient had gotten sicker, requiring more interventions. These events resulted in numerous people being gathered around, people that I know, that I work with, laughing, joking, talking about work, going about our business. Working in critical care, we are more attuned to the loudspeaker as there are often announcements of various types of codes that require the response of various critical care teams to other areas of the hospital. This announcement, though, was one that we had never heard before and one in which we weren't sure was even real. Code active shooter. We have talked so much in meetings the past few months about raising our awareness to threats, about various policies to implement, but as of yet, we had done nothing of significance. Code active shooter. Working in a level 1 trauma center, it's not uncommon for us to have assault victims, gunshot victims, and other patients who arrive after experiencing some precarious event. We often have police in our ICU. I arrived that morning, in fact, to one such police officer sitting camped outside my desk asking for coffee. Code active shooter, labor and delivery. Pagers and phone calls erupted in the unit. This was no joke. There was, in fact, an active shooter on the premises. We were in a state of lockdown. No one was to come or go. We were to stand down and stand by. As we stood waiting for another page to be echoing in our halls. Code MERT, labor and delivery. A code MERT is when someone who is not admitted to the hospital needs emergent medical attention. Knowing there was an active shooter, we deduced that a code MERT could only mean that someone had been shot. Later, we would find out this to be true. As we continued to stand down and wait, another page echoed our halls. Rapid response, labor and delivery. A rapid response is when someone who is admitted to the hospital needs emergent medical attention. I often accompany the rapid response team. We looked at each other and geared up to go. We were told to wait until all was clear. And once it was, we went. As I stepped onto the labor and delivery unit, the active shooter, who was no longer active, but was now himself shot, was being rushed to the emergency room. I surveyed the area, and there was blood everywhere. Drops trailing down hallways, with pools residing in various places. Nurses were leaning into walls, sure to fall without the support of them against their shaking bodies. A handful of new mothers stood in the halls with their newborns cradled in their arms. Police flooded the halls. The rapid response patient was taken to the emergency room and treated. I stayed for a time more, desiring to help, but no more help was warranted. I headed back to the ICU when I encountered hospital administration, who asked me to come back. We debriefed in labor and delivery. We continued to evaluate the patient census and the healthcare workers' well-being. Statements were made, facts discussed, needs identified. After some time, I walked back to the ICU. I wondered if I wasn't tracking blood all the way back with me, as I felt covered in it. Though honestly, I don't think there really was any on me. Once back in the ICU, I called the unit to the front and relayed the information that I knew to them. I tried to say the right things. I wondered, though, if they were the right things. I went down to the ER to see if they needed anything and to show support for our staff. They were now covered in blood from the trauma we had all experienced. They worked tirelessly despite him. Again, I stood with nothing to offer, nothing to do. After the dust settled, I stood at the front of the ICU. The unit secretary sat there, and we did not discuss the trivial value of pens anymore. She asked if I was okay, if I was really okay. She came over and gave me a deep hug. "You've seen a lot of trauma in your young life," she said. I rested in her embrace. She has seen me on many traumatic days. She has watched me over the years on day shifts and night shifts. She's given me many deep hugs. Since the events, there has been an overwhelming outpouring of concern, love, support, and comfort. I'm tremendously thankful and encouraged. I am okay, truly. I have, as my friend said, seen a lot of trauma in my young life. But today, what I feel is mostly confused. I feel numb. I feel so very tired. I've come home to my puppies and some chips and queso and will retreat in a few hours to bed for some much needed sleep and true rest. I stopped asking why a long time ago, before COVID. Honestly, the why doesn't really matter anymore. It doesn't change what happened. It doesn't change what is. I thought
Well,
that was very, very poignant.
What an amazing writer. I mean,
She has seen.
it's amazing. I mean, and what she's gone through, but she captured that.
I have to say that last grouping of sentences, particularly, I'm actually having an emotional response to it. That just floored me because any nurse, you, me, her, all of us know, when she just said tired, numb, and stopped asking why. If you didn't feel that, I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
I had goosebumps down both my legs when
was a
she
lot.
said that. Yeah.
That was a lot.
And the fact
That was
that
a
she
lot.
was pressured to take it down shortly after it was posted.
Well, of course she would be, because, to what I think we'll be discussing today and what we always try to discuss on our platforms, and I've been discussing in the last few weeks especially, is this transparency issue. Nobody wants the transparency, and to segue quickly, in the video I posted yesterday, I did a screenshot of, if you Google nurse, what comes up? Nurse diverts medication, nurse and doctor involved in sex trafficking scandal. That's what the public sees. They don't hear that.
Right.
They don't hear this. They don't want this to be the narrative. They don't want the transparency in this, because, to be fair, that nursing, yes, there's always going to be trauma. There's always going to be things that are seen that we really wish we hadn't seen. We knew that came with the job. But what it's become now, how are you supposed to go home after that and not go home damaged?
Yeah.
I don't have the answer. I don't know.
The part that got to me was I stopped asking why, because you become you feel like nobody's listening. Nobody's listening to the fact that nobody really cares or is doing anything about it. So why keep asking, why is this happening? Because you know that your words are going to go on deaf ears. Like, that's the part that really got to me, is I stopped asking why.
Yeah. And I think we've all maybe been in that space, particularly. I know for myself, and I'm not, I don't want to say ashamed is the word. Maybe disappointed in myself a little bit, but when I decided to say goodbye to the bedside, it was mostly because of, I hate to say this, but I kind of gave up. There was nothing more I could do.
That's a sign of burnout, is giving up and not caring anymore.
No, it's true. And I think that nursing burnout, the signs and symptoms of nursing burnout, I think, get overlooked by people in our profession consistently. I pulled, just, if you'll indulge me for a moment, I pulled a list, and it's just, these are things that wouldn't necessarily, exhaustion, right? So every nurse feels exhausted, especially nurses that are doing like their 312s. Every nurse feels exhausted. So that may not be something that you initially notice as a sign of burnout. Anxiety. Again, we all feel anxiety, so you may not necessarily, exactly. You may not necessarily notice that. Insomnia. I don't know about you ladies, but I know for myself, especially after COVID happened, the doctor told me I had what they call alarm fatigue. And that's when I kept having these you ladies know. And for those of you who don't know, alarm fatigue is when a nurse experiences in a sleep state, you constantly keep waking up and jumping because you're hearing the call bells go off. Now, there are no call bells because you're home in the privacy of your own bedroom, but the PTSD.
You're so in tune to that, right?
Right.
Yeah.
And what we all heard during COVID, we heard alarms way more than we ever did. So, I digress with that. Depersonalization. How many people have experienced that?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. For sure.
Feeling unappreciated.
Okay.
Definitely.
Now, this one is very interesting, which some people overlook: illness. So, a
Yeah.
flu or a cold, someone says, oh, it's just a flu, it's a cold. Sometimes these types of things are brought on from stress and and it can present as like an illness, a headache, a migraine,
Or
decreased job
repeated illnesses if you
Correct.
are seeming to get sick a lot.
Correct. Absolutely. Decreased job satisfaction, emotional difficulties, reduced personal accomplishment, change in appetite. I mean, I don't know, I won't speak for you, but how many of us here have had weight loss when work was bad, or weight gain, rather?
Right.
But again, if you think about it, nobody, I know myself, wasn't really attributing these to burnout. There's such everyday things that you don't really correlate them. Constant anxiety related to work, depression, lack of enthusiasm about work, calling in sick excessively, feelings of ineffectiveness, lacking motivation, physical disorders, short temper, skipping work, and you feel unwell. Now, those are all signs and symptoms of things we experience in our everyday life. I think what needs to be discussed, and really is rarely discussed, is noticing nursing burnout as it's happening. And not just saying, oh, it's just a migraine. Or, oh, I'm just having a bad day. It's noticing the pattern, in my opinion.
Can I add a couple to your list? Because I
Oh,
also
boy.
looked
There's
up
more.
a list.
No, you cannot.
And I think that these are important because, like you said, not everybody realizes these are actual signs of burnout. Arriving late to work regularly, which, I mean, for me, that's a baseline.
I've had everything y'all have said so far. I have had every one of those, every single one.
If you're
so
someone
far.
that's normally very, very prompt, and now suddenly you're always late arriving to work, that can be a sign.
I'm surprised about that with you, though, because you are very scheduled and very...
Oh, no. Anyone that has ever worked with me will tell you. I am the one who is arriving 3 minutes late with the Starbucks. I am not getting there a minute early. Yes. Jessica will tell you I'm always late. I was late today for this.
I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about.
You're so meticulous in life. You're so scheduled and organized in life.
She's organized, but she's got like the Latin gene, the being late gene.
It's a weird thing because like time management as a nurse, down packed for years and years, right? No issues there. I can absolutely prioritize, time manage, but when it comes to arriving on time, no. I will forever be 10 minutes late for life in general. I've just accepted it.
See, I was always like 30 minutes early.
Oh yeah, no, never.
Is that an Italian thing? Is that a Boston thing?
No, honestly, not to interrupt Erica because I know she's reading the list, but I think it ties into nursing burnout. It was the anxiety I was feeling about what needed to be done that I was showing up so early.
That makes sense.
Who shows up 30 minutes early?
Nursing students. I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. With their monogram lunch bag and their monogram crock.
And it says RN on everything. Yep.
Yeah.
What else did you find, Erica?
Compassion fatigue. I don't think we talk about that a lot. So, nurses are naturally very empathetic and compassionate, right? But if you are at a point where you're like only speaking negatively about your patients, if you no longer have a visceral reaction to an overtly heartbreaking situation or diagnosis, these can be signs of burnout. Emotional exhaustion. So maybe you're not physically exhausted, but it's your day off and maybe you've already been off for a couple of days, but you just are so exhausted that you can't get off the couch because you just don't have it in you.
Yeah.
You slept well. You just don't have it in you to get up and do anything.
If I may, to that point, what I always say is, for me, again, my personal opinion, the healthcare system for me is like a vampire. and it drains the life force out of you.
Yeah.
And it just, that's really how I felt at that time. I mean, I still do feel that way. Luckily, in the realm that I'm in now, not as much, but sometimes. But it's a vampire, and it sucks the life force.
That's a good analogy.
That reminds me of that Olivia Rodrigo song. Now anytime I hear that,
now we're going to apply it to nursing. Maybe that can be the new intro for Nurses Uncorked.
Hey, I kind of like it. I may make a TikTok using that sound.
It's true though. It is like a vampire, and it's like, you know, and you know, not to ramble, but it's so high. Me and Erica have had, you know, so many conversations about this. And I'll say to her, like, you know, in your previous relationships, what did you do? And, you know, we're talking romantically, and I'm like, you try not to bring it home. You try not to let it infect the household. And damn, as you try, it happens.
It's almost impossible not to. Yeah.
And it's really upsetting, and it's upsetting especially to the other person, to the partner, especially if they're not in healthcare, because there's no way you could ever explain and or would want to what's going on up here.
There's no way to explain it.
There's no way. People like, don't get it.
Being with a physician, I think I know physicians experience burnout, but I think that physicians experience things way differently than a nurse does. You can't talk to a physician and have them understand what a nurse goes through. You can try, and they think they understand, but they don't. They really don't. They don't get it, because usually when they're managing something, the majority of the time they're managing the task that they're assigned to. The nurse is managing a million things at one time. So it's difficult, even though you think you have somebody that would completely understand. Unless it's another nurse that works like you do, it's very, very hard to get somebody to understand it.
You know, to that, and keeping with what we're discussing, I don't know if we all want to share our stories, but I know for me, I wasn't initially aware of that what I was experiencing was signs and symptoms of burnout. So it's the beginning of COVID, still working psych. This is before, like, they were still trying to figure out how to isolate the contaminated patients from the non-contaminated patients in the locked unit. I mean, this is the days of, and it sounds crazy, there's plastic taped up, and and they're coming up with all these ways, because, you know, especially in that type of setting, it was very difficult to separate. And you know, doctors aren't coming into the building anymore, and everything is telehealth, and, you know, there's iPads being carried around the unit, and caregivers are getting sick, and techs are getting sick, and nurses are getting sick. And then it's like the law changes or the rule changes, and nurses now can come to work if they're not symptomatic, and now we're sick and we're infecting them. The families aren't understanding what's going on, and we're acting as the intermediary for the families in a way that we never had before. And, you know, it goes from doing 312s to doing 512s. With the height for me, it was 812s. And it was like, this is all happening, this is all happening, this is all happening. And I've said this to Erica before. Once that was over, and then I'll lead into this, that's when I should have left. Because the burnout had already happened. I mean, I was living in it, not understanding, and there's studies on this, that the effects of burnout happen way after. So I carried that around with me in my nursing career for like the next 2 years, until inevitably there was like a crash.
Yeah.
So to that point, I think a lot of the stories we've seen as of late, with nurses who have prematurely ended their lives soon, may or may not have been in the same situation that I was, where I just wasn't recognizing this wasn't good.
Yeah.
You know, you're a nurse, and you got to give of yourself, and, you know, this is what we do, and just give and give and give. And, oh, you know, your coworkers are sick and they can't come in. You got to come in. You got to, and you're just going until
my biggest one that I feel like for me and burnout was personality change. when my personality
Oh, that's
changed
a good
at
one.
work
Yeah, that's
is
important to
when
point out.
is when my nursing burnt out set in, because I was always, no matter how horrible things were at work or stressful, I was always the animated, giggly, comedic life of the
Right.
unit. Like, I mean, I'm not trying to toot my own
We
horn.
know.
That was my personality. Like that is
It still is.
yeah, that's what, but I got to a point that I turned into, I describe it as a turtle. I went into my inner shell, and I I didn't have the energy anymore to be the person that I normally was. I went in
Yeah.
there and was just like, nobody cares. Nobody cares how I feel. I'm going to just do my job, do what I have to do, get in and get out. And
Quiet
I
quitting.
became a recluse, literally. I was no longer the nurse Jessica people knew anymore. And that's how I knew. And like Matthew said, I continued to work under those circumstances for another 2 years before I knew I had to leave bedside. But I wasn't the same. I isolated myself. I even chose a nursing position that put me remotely into an area where I could be alone. I was doing the complete opposite of what my personality was.
That's
And
really valuable. I'm
that
glad that you shared that. I think that's it kind of goes a little bit along with the like compassion fatigue and cynicism, which is
Yeah.
also a sign of burnout. But yeah, that's
But yeah, personality
valuable.
change being goes along almost with depression. Like you become just
Yeah.
I don't have it in me anymore because nobody cares. Nobody, they don't
You
care if I'm
you
upset.
don't feel
so
seen. Yeah.
yeah,
No, it's that too, and it's also, I noticed for myself, and it still carries to this day. And, I ask my mother, obviously 40-year nurse, and I ask her all the time if this goes away, and we never really get an answer when we have these conversations, but we just don't we don't get there. But I find myself having, let me choose my words carefully, very little compassion for other people's problems that don't rank in a priority hierarchy in my own brain.
Yeah.
So depending on the day you may have had, someone's complaining about, I don't know, you pick anything, and I'm just like,
Yeah.
Like,
And
okay.
do you know what I'm dealing
Okay, and
with?
so-
Okay. Yeah, that's not a
right,
big deal.
but to that point though, and this is what I said, especially when it comes to romantic relationships, this is what the public will never understand. It's not just go to school and be a nurse. There's so much that goes into it. It's like it gets me so worked up because no one tells you about how you're going to have to now, who you were before nursing school, before stepping on the floor, that person's gone. And he or she's never coming back. So
Yeah.
that's something they don't tell you. Who I was prior is never coming back. I always use the example of the Wizard of Oz. Once Dorothy peeked behind the curtain and saw Oz was a bunch of BS, Dorothy was never the same. The magic was gone. That's what's happened. I've looked behind the curtain. I can't be that girl from Kansas anymore. I'm not the girl from Kansas. I know now. And so it's very hard to go back to that. And they don't prep you for how to navigate your new role in your new life, because you're never going to be that naive, innocent. It's never going to, you know what's going on. And to the point of why they delete things like what Erica just read, because they want to keep the wizard behind the curtain.
Yep.
Oz has to stay behind the curtain.
They don't want us
The
to be
world
able to
can't know
talk
what
about
Oz is.
what's really going on, which would be therapeutic and help nurses
100%.
if we could
100%.
without fear of, retaliation.
100%.
I think I've had a couple of different times where I've been totally burnt out, but the one that was most notable, I ended up in the ER. I was convinced that I was having a heart attack. I had like the numbness on one arm. I had some chest pain. I was so convinced that I was having a heart attack. And like all good nurses would do, I didn't go to my ER, which was right downstairs. got in the car
Yeah.
and drove
Like,
to
I
a
don't want
nobody to
completely
know where-
different
Yeah, we
hospital
don't do
where they
that.
didn't know me.
100%.
Don't recommend that. That's really
100%.
not smart. But
Preferably in a different county or
yeah, exactly. And they admitted me based on my symptoms, and they did all the tests, and every single thing came back normal. And turns out I was just stressed out beyond any reasonable measure, you know, and it had been sustained for so long that that's how it was manifesting. You know, it wasn't like I had a bad
Right.
week. It was like I'd had a bad 2 years, you know, and just like you guys, I
right.
stayed there. And you keep dealing with it. You keep internalizing it, and eventually it comes out. It'll come out one way or another. You know, it's just a question of how and when. But I think it's really important to recognize signs that could be, you know?
You know what I was going to say is, have you ever noticed the nurse, though, that you know is burnt out, but it has continued doing it for another 20 years? They're just, they're there.
Yes.
Because burnout happens, but some people won't leave.
Jessica.
And they just don't.
Yes.
They just look like they just don't
Jessica.
give a shit. Like,
we all know that nurse. We all know that nurse.
Yes.
No, I'm thinking of one specifically.
Me too. What was their name? What was yours name?
Well, here's what I'm going to say. I don't want to say the name because I know she happens to be a fan and she does watch the podcast. So I'm going to reference something that only she will understand, and I'm just going to say Messy Cupboard. Messy Cupboard. So she knows who she is. But Messy Cupboard, you know, she brought so many snacks to work. This woman, she was like a supermarket. But Messy Cupboard, and I remember we'd say to her all the time, like, you can go. Like, she was like right at retirement age. Like, you can go. Like, you know, and you can go. Like,
and they're like hanging in there, aren't they? They are hanging in there.
You're waiting for permission. You can go. We give you permission.
Well, we give. Cheers to that, because we would all tell her she could just roll up, and she was right at retirement age, and we'd be like, Messy Cupboard, why are you still? Stop.
I think I worked with her. I think I worked with her.
Did you work with Messy Cupboard?
I have worked with a few of those Messy Cupboards.
Her name is Lynn. My Messy Cupboard's name is Lynn.
It's funny. My messy cupboard's name begins with the letter L.
Does
so does mine.
It's not.
So does mine.
Yes.
An L as well.
It does not.
Well, there's something to
it.
No
does.
way.
No, for real. Yeah. I'll ask you later what yours name is. But literally, they are. But you know what I will tell you is they are the smartest, most responsive nurses that there are. But they are just
the most experienced. They've done it. They've seen it all. But
you could, and I had another one with an O name that started with an O, and I won't say it. But this one was just everything. While her face was like this, like there she calling out again.
Nurse.
Like,
you know, I said this. I said this in the video I posted yesterday, and I said, like, you know, for me, it's just like, you know, I don't want to say aroused by it, but like it turns me on. That nurse who, like, you know, back in the 70s was ripping 3 packs of lox a day, and she's done it all, and she's seen it all, and you ain't gonna tell her nothing. And there's a whiff of like nicotine and regret to her, and it's just like,
wait a minute. Matthew, the one I'm
need.
talking about was a heavy smoker, and
Love
when
her.
they didn't allow smoking anymore, she turned even more pissed off.
Listen, you know what's funny? As I'm sitting here and I'm having this idea, you know what I'm gonna do? I want to get an old school photo. I have one somewhere. It's a photo of my mother smoking at the nurses station back in the day, and I want to make a shirt like this that says make nursing great again, and then we'll just start selling those. But you know,
for those of you that can't see, Matthew's shirt is "Make America Great Again," but it's not a picture of who you think. It's Brittany, Paris, and Lindsay.
I love it.
The Holy Trinity.
Britney Spears.
The Holy
Trinity.
Britney. Circa 1990, what? 2000?
2007.
2000. Oh, okay.
2007.
I miss Britney
2007.
Spears. Anywho, that's a whole nother podcast.
But so I guess where I wanted to go with this, maybe we all want to, you know, discuss it. So with the nursing burnout and looking at the stories as of late, if you'll indulge me, and I guess this is where the trigger warning will come in.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing a little, a little digging, and I was curious to see how many sisters and scrubs we had lost due to burnout, these situations. So I'm not going to read the whole entire narrative, but we have a case in Italy, a 49-year-old nurse. So she had volunteered to work with patients on the newly converted COVID-19 ward at Gisello Hospital. So a few days before, now mind you, this is the beginning of COVID. A few days before her death, she was suffering from fever, took a test for COVID-19. They made her stay at work. She lived alone. And when she found her test result came back positive, news at that time was spreading over Venice that the SARS, COVID, this was like a thing. It was like a thing. The authorities did not reveal her test results, and the hospital director, after they found her unalived in her apartment, had released a statement expressing the deepest condolences. That one kind of gets me because
That's
the
tough.
second case was in England, and it was at King's College Hospital in London. An unnamed nurse in her 20s was found unresponsive in the ICU and could not be saved. There had been 8 patients that she was taking care of that had died recently from COVID-19.
Wow.
She had discussed about the critical shortage of intensive care beds and the nurses. At that time, half the population of the UK had already been infected. Nurses and doctors were working, according to her, without risk, without personal PPE. And she also decided to end her life prematurely. The third case that happened during that time in 2020 was in Italy. Daniela Trezzi, she was a 34-year-old Italian nurse working in the ICU in Sinderato. It was a badly affected area, like in the Lombardy region, like they got hit heavy with COVID. She had been quarantined, and she was distressed by what she was seeing at the hospital and had voiced like depression about what she was seeing, and that families couldn't visit people, and it was really wearing on her what was going on. And she also exited early. The fourth case comes to the United States, and I'm sure we all know about this one. It's William Coddington, and he's from where we're from. He's from South Florida, and he took his own life following an overdose. He had expressed concerns in numerous text messages to friends and family about the rationing of the N95 masks during his shifts. We all know when the N95s got put in the cardboard box and we collected it the next shift, and it went back in the cardboard
or
box.
locked in the manager's office where you can't get them.
100%. And here's what's really sad about this. He volunteered to work in the JFK coronavirus unit, and when his family asked him why he was doing this, he was like, "This kills me. It's back to Rosie the what's she called? Rosie the
Riveter.
He's like they need me. They need me. That giving, the giving. So here goes William. He felt he was needed at the front line. 100%. He felt he was, so this is in their words, he felt he was needed and on the front line, but he was becoming increasingly fearful and traumatized. Also at this time, he starts struggling with isolation that Jessica just talked about and an opioid addiction. Now, not here to judge, but it's the perfect recipe for addiction to brew. The perfect recipe.
Right.
And the day before he ended his life, mind you, he was trying to work his program, but he was only able to work his program at that time through the virtual meetings. There were no more in-person AA, NA meetings. He was only working the virtual program. And the day before he passed, one of his patients passed away, and he felt things splash on his face, i.e. fluids, body fluid.
COVID, essentially.
The next day, COVID, essentially. And the next day, the fifth case is in Mexico. A young nurse ended her life after she was put in self-quarantine for a week with 4 of her colleagues. Her death followed her complaints to administration about the shortage of PPE. The sixth case is a nurse from India on May 28th, and she was found, how do we say this? She was found,
obviously,
with a
unalived
rope
by her own means. Yes.
Correct, with a rope, okay? And she took her life after her tested positive for COVID-19, and after expressing to coworkers that she could no longer continue the pace she'd been continuing on the floor she was working on. So those are just the COVID ones. Then we come to, and that's just during COVID. Then we come to the one that we most recently know about, the two we most, Odell. And then we have the LA nurse. Yep. Then we have the nurse in California, who, to my knowledge, still has not been named. I still don't have a name for this nurse, but who unalived himself on the ED floor after numerous months and months of expressing burnout. And then the most recent, Miss Tristan
Kate Smith. I actually received something. Sorry, to cut you off. I just received recently a message from a follower that had just become aware of Tristan's letter to my abuser and had just gotten done reading it and felt compelled to reach out to me because she said she almost was Tristan. Back in May of 2021, she was experiencing all of the burnout that we mentioned. She was working all of the overtime, felt totally unheard, unseen, and had gone so far as to have a plan in place to end her life.
Oh, that's bad.
And she said that if it wasn't for one aide that she worked with, she wouldn't still be here. But this aide somehow figured out that she had a plan. She must have really been paying attention to the signs and put her on her own kind of informal suicide watch and checked in with her every day, multiple times a day, looked out for her. And ultimately, this nurse ended up quitting, leaving that toxic job, and is now a traveler and says that she owes everything to this CNA that she worked with. And I think that that's
somebody
really
that was
important.
recognizing it, recognize the signs. Yep.
To Tristan's letter, I don't know if any of us had a chance to read, but when speaking of Odell, I find what he wrote very similar and very sad at the same time. And so he wrote, I'm already feeling the emotional burnout, this is during COVID, of caring for patients who, despite some being the sickest they've ever been, are unable to have their loved ones by them. And this was all on Facebook. What do you say to someone who is facing death and can't have their loved ones with them? I feel for them as deep as human empathy can allow.
Yeah.
But I fear, this is the part, I fear the long-term effects this may have on every clinical worker navigating this pandemic and in these situations. Please don't think me selfish. I get that my level of suffering cannot compare to what these patients and their families are experiencing. But the fact is that I have an amazing support system and people who love me and tell me frequently that they do. I fear for those who do not. And in January of that year.
And there it is.
You know what I will say? Like, I think about, like, a lot of people say, a lot of the nurses that may have been like at the epitome of stress and seeing people die after die. But I often think about the nurses that worked in long-term care that had to see these people that were used to their spouse being able to visit them.
Yeah.
That all of a sudden no longer could reach out and have that family member there to love them, and maybe had to look at them through a glass window or look at them outside. Like that, it takes a toll too. That disconnect, that emotional bond and love that you get from people. I mean, it's sad enough to not be able to be there when your loved one is dying, but even just that day-to-day stuff that people depend on. Like, you're in a nursing home, you're already sad, you're having to have strangers take care of you, and now all of a sudden the little bit of brightness in your day, which was your family coming to see you, was taken away from you too, is heartbreaking. It's literally heartbreaking. That's hard to see. I mean, that is
Yeah.
is
I
is
think
rough.
I think too, though, I don't want the listeners to think that this is just nurses. Was, yes, a portion of them happened during that time period. This wasn't just, oh, it happened during the pandemic and it's over.
Oh,
No,
my
No,
burnout
it's not
happened
over.
before
this is
COVID.
active. This is
Mine was
active.
before COVID, to be
I
honest
had
with
one
you.
before
Well,
and
there you go.
one during. Yeah, the one that I mentioned in the ER, that was before.
And so, I've said before publicly on TikTok, and I've told Erica this before, I know for myself, I refuse to become a tree.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be a tree.
I know exactly
I'm
what
sorry.
that
Yeah.
means. And people
I'm
may not know
going
what
to-
that
and
means.
And if you're a nurse, you know what that means. I'm not going to be a tree.
Tell them what it means for those that don't know.
So a tree means, so as nurses, and excuse my, my foul mouth, but that's the only way to get there. We're pissed on. That's our career. We're paid to be pissed on. That's the job, literally and figuratively. And when events like this occur, corporation administration's usual go-to is to plant a memorial tree for said nurse that is no longer with us, said sister in scrubs that is no longer with us. I know that me, Erica, Jessica, we ain't gonna be trees.
I'm not going to be a tree.
If somebody plants me as a tree, I'm going to come back and piss on it. I can tell you that.
Exactly. No,
I'm
that's the thing.
I'm going to be
You're
a
gonna haunt
ghost, and I'm
them.
going to come back and I'm going to
But
piss
what
on
I
that
want to
tree.
what I want to say is, and I think we're talking to all, me specifically, I mean, how I'm feeling. I'm talking to right now, yes, the seasoned nurse, yes, people of our age group, but I'm talking to the new nurse. I'm talking to the young nurse who didn't experience the pandemic. Okay. I'm talking to the young nurse that doesn't have her roots firmly planted, who administration loves to take advantage of because it's her first time hearing that be a team player. I'm talking to that nurse. It's okay. Becoming a nurse is hard work. We put a lot into it to earn our initials. It's okay to walk away.
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
the
it's
takeaway.
okay. Somehow, some way, I promise you, and me and Erica get very frustrated with this, nurses who, oh, I have to be anonymous and I can't report my bill. We all have bills.
Yeah.
We all have mortgages.
We all have
we
families.
all have car payments.
Yeah.
We all have families, our own personal medical conditions. We all have that. Whether you're religious, not religious, somehow, some way the universe will provide. Okay? It's okay. I'd rather struggle and eat English muffins for a few months than end up a tree.
You have to take care of yourself. That's the
I'm not gonna be
bottom
a tree.
line.
It's
the bottom
okay to walk away. And if that means not being a nurse temporarily or permanently, that's okay. I have a friend of mine
And
that
it's okay
is
to
a younger,
not be okay.
Yeah. A
Go
friend
ahead,
of mine
Erica.
that's a younger nurse that reached out to me recently, and she's like, I'm seriously considering quitting nursing altogether and going and being a bartender. And I'm like, go, because I could see
That's okay.
that she wasn't, she wasn't doing great. It's okay. Yes, we work our ass off to get this degree. We shouldn't have to leave the profession that we put so much blood, sweat, and tears into. But if you are at a point where you are exhibiting any of the symptoms, the manifestations of burnout that we mentioned, and if you think that maybe you might be on a bad path, it's okay to leave. It's okay to quit the job. It's okay to not give 2 weeks notice. It's okay to leave nursing entirely if it means that you're going to be okay.
Amen to that. It's okay to not be okay, and it's okay to leave. I'm hearing more and more from young nurses that are leaving nursing after a year, leaving nursing within the first year, because this is a hard time to come into nursing. It really is.
Yeah.
I mean, things are it. Nursing's always been tough, but this is an exceptionally rough time.
This is exceptionally rough time, yes, but this is, and again, this could be the Boston in me. I love a good analogy, but this is very like Salem witch hunt. Like it's
Yes.
it's almost insane. Like when I see what's being done, it blows my mind. Like it's a witch hunt, and
It is.
I've never seen nurses being crucified. You know, Erica said in one of her TikTok videos, I think it was from last year, and you may have just reposted it as a memory. And you talked about how during COVID we were superheroes, you know, Wonder Woman and all that kind of stuff. And
Healthcare heroes.
You know, healthcare didn't like that. But she said something, and it stuck, and it stuck. And she said, but they played the long game.
They did. Yep, they did.
We're seeing the long game.
Healthcare organizations hated that we were getting paid more than ever before in the history of the profession, that that we were feeling empowered for the first time, and that the entire world was kind of worshiping us as a healthcare hero. They hated that, but they couldn't say anything about it because it was the height of COVID, and we were in fact healthcare heroes. Not that any of us want to be called that, but they were like, okay, we'll just wait. We'll bide our time and wait until it dies down for the opportune moment. And they've done it beautifully, unfortunately, strategically. And they have unfortunately succeeded in vilifying nurses in the public eye, in public's perception of nurses. You know, you can't open a newspaper, turn on the news anymore without seeing some horrific thing that a nurse has supposedly done. It's everywhere. It's absolutely a witch hunt.
As we're speaking, I mean, this is what I say. It's every day. You could do this as I'm pulling up my phone as we're speaking. All you have to do is type in the word nurse, go to the news section. Nurse fires legal action. Nurses unqualified staff actions to be struck off. Capilani Medical Center nurses announced plans to strike. Hawaii hospitals are full of head of possible nurse strike. Nurse charged with fentanyl diversion. You could just any day. That's what it is. You know, every single day. And I'm so tired of hearing about, you know, this nursing shortage. And what I said yesterday was, you know, our era came in, is leaving at a much faster rate than anyone anticipated. And they say they want the eager young nurse, you know, the new nurse. They want the people that didn't go through all this to come in, who are a little bit naive and blind to it. And they're going to end up being the next story, or the next person we cover. And I wish we could go back in time and reach out to people like Tristan and say, baby, you can go. You can go.
I want to say I just did what you suggested. And the first, and I've only had 20 seconds to look. The first 10 things I've read are horrific articles about nurses.
It's almost
There's nothing positive.
And tomorrow, there's going to be 10 even worse. Every single day. I just hope that people can recognize the signs and symptoms of burnout and just know that, you know, because you have a mortgage payment, that's not a reason to stay. Because, you know,
it's okay to leave. It's okay. Watch out for each other. And it's okay if you are at all in doubt or fearful, just get out of there. Get out of there.
Here's a prime example, and some people are more visual. Raise your hand if you left the bedside and you're still okay.
Yeah, me. Yeah,
we're still okay.
I mean,
we're fine. We're still okay. Well, I mean,
it's all subjective.
It's relative.
No, but we're all still okay. So there's no reason to, you know, force yourself to stay in this and I say all the time, you know, there needs to be a reset. I don't know what the solution is, but I do know that when I go and visit the hospital and I see a 22-year-old girl who is the charge nurse and still reeks of NCLEX, I just want to.
Yeah. You're like, you haven't even gotten off the computer, and you're
still RN monogrammed on everything.
Yeah, I'm gonna say it right here. You know, we had a little private talk about this. It's like you and no shade to new nurses. I love y'all.
No,
but
we all did
a mile away. We all did it, but they come in and they have the Crocs with RN and their initials, and they have the monogram back, and they have the little trifold clipboard, and it's monogrammed, and the pens are all neat.
But you know what? I miss feeling that, and it's
a pride.
It's nursing and stress that takes that away from you.
Because they still smell like NCLEX. Of course, they're like that. But
You're new
When
and
you-
why can't
And you're
that
excited
stay? Why
and
can't that?
proud.
because
nursing beats
unfortunately,
it out of
Jessica,
us.
nursing
It
beats it out of
does.
you.
It does.
It
And
beats it
people
out of
go
you.
into it like they're going to conquer it. And it's so sad. It should be that way.
It is.
I want to bring some levity to this situation. We didn't do the nurse problem of the week because we got carried away. But I want to give an enema
Problem of the week.
How's it go?
away. I have an
Problem of the
enema I
week.
want to give away, and Erica is going to know exactly who I'm talking about. And I
have
told her today
no
I have an
idea
enema.
who her enema award
This is
but
so
I'm excited
freaking
now.
petty and cheesy and
Woo!
is not
Let's hear it.
serious at all. But
Wait. Let me get my sip ready. Hold on.
I love a
Erica's
petty
gonna, as soon
enema
as
of
I
the
say
week
it,
award.
you're gonna say
I'm getting my sip.
to the people on Facebook named Nurse Life Community that keep spamming every one of my comments for people to join Nurse Life Community. I give you an enema because every time I
Amen.
turn around and block somebody, there was
Amen.
another Nurse Life Community. But
Yeah.
I'm saying that, but at the same
Yep.
time, I'm joking. I remember becoming an up and coming group or an up and coming somebody that's trying to get followers. I remember I used to spam nurses.
They're
cards back
spamming
in the
me
day.
left and
So-
right.
So, oh my gosh, I can't. Who are these Nurse Life Community,
Can-
Erica?
I almost
Who are
think that
they?
it's like a bot or something because they're all
Yes.
copying and pasting the exact same comment on all my comment sections.
It doesn't
It's
stop.
so annoying.
It doesn't stop.
Screw
And
you,
there's
Nurse
500
Life
of
Community
them.
on Facebook.
Yes.
Well,
I gave up. I finally just gave up.
can we do a double enema?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
So wait, can
We've
we
never
do a
done a
suppository?
double enema before. This
can
is
we do
exciting.
a suppository?
Yeah,
Yes.
this
So,
is a suppository.
Me and Erica had this conversation, and I have to say this out loud. And if you're girls that have been or gentlemen, God forbid, who have been fans of ours for a while, and most of you say that you live in our comment section because our comment sections can be very fun. We all have very fun comment sections. I want to give a Ducalac suppository to.
Oh wait, what about the nurse that gave Tylenol instead of
Girl.
she was supposed to give it rectal and gave it PO. I want to give a rectal
Well,
Tylenol PO.
I'd like to give a Ducalac suppository too. And wait, hold on. This is gonna be good. I'm getting all ready.
Let's hear
I
it.
can't wait. I want to hear it.
To the members of C-suite and administration who try to discreetly follow us and only change maybe one letter of their name. So I'm just going to name locations. HCA Healthcare, we've seen you.
Mhm.
We see
We
you.
see you.
They see ya.
you.
They
you
see
know,
ya.
ORMC, you caught them
Mhm.
live. Saw you too.
Yeah.
So to those administrative members who use their first names and just put the number 7 after it or the number 4, we see you. We appreciate the love. You're
Wow,
fans.
what a creative change they did. Wow.
I know. And
Yeah.
so and we appreciate the support. Erica
No,
will just
we don't. We
DM
don't.
her. She will send you a fan package, autograph photo, whatever you need.
As if.
We don't mind doing that. It just blows my mind because I was saying to Erica on the phone the other day. I'm not one person in particular who we're not going to name right now. I called her up. I'm like, this woman just put her first name where her real and
They're not even trying. They're not even
they're not even
trying
trying
to
be
remain
discreet. And it's
anonymous
like,
or
it's
discreet.
It's only following like one of us.
Yeah.
No posts, brand new
Yeah.
account. Just so we your fans, we know. We know.
Yeah.
We know.
So
And you know what's
C-suite
funny, too?
moles
And,
are spying on
C-suite
our
moles.
stuff.
Well,
basically.
I told Erica too, and this had been said to me. So in most places right now, it's ACA survey winter, and I was told, and I said this to Erica, that a lot of these C-suite people follow us specifically because if we're not talking about them, then they're good. They're in the clear. So they
Right.
use us as the standard to see if they okay. So if one of us is talking about them, they're in trouble. But if they don't
True.
see themselves mentioned, so we're kind of a tool, maybe.
It's a barometer to
guess.
see how bad or how good they're doing. Yeah. Or how bad they've hidden, how well they,
I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'm just
like
thinking
a
though.
cucumber in the rectum. Oh, geez, I don't know where that came from. Sometimes
Well,
you
I
hide
enjoyed
things,
those.
just because you
those,
can. There's a lot of
enemas
ER
of the week.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you were saying you enjoyed the cucumber in the rectum.
Cucumber in the
I
rectum.
did too. I was like, wow, Erica, I didn't know you were a freak like that, but hey.
Listen,
kudos
there's
to
a
you.
lot that you don't know.
I'm the one drinking the patient
on
satisfaction
the next
score.
Nurses Uncorked, Erica's going to go into her sexual history. Yeah.
Ooh,
Woo!
ooh,
Stay
ooh.
tuned, people. Well,
Right?
Matthew, thank you, Masshole McGuido. Please follow
You're
Masshole
welcome.
McGuido on TikTok.
Where can they find you?
Yeah, I think that's your main one, but where
Well,
else?
they can find me on TikTok because I am this time of year. I do a cleanse. So right now, that's the only place you're gonna look. I have removed Facebook from my life, and I
And
feel
it's
better,
the
honestly.
Masshole McGuido, right?
The TheMasshole
Wow, no wonder you guys like each other. The Nurse Erica and the Masshole McGuido.
Yeah. No,
I love you.
For
both.
2024,
I've told Erica
I love
before
you
I'm going to
too.
become the Nurse Jessica Seitz just because I can. Why not?
Well,
I
you
might do
should
it.
be though. It's
Yeah.
like the Nurse Erica, the Mass.
No, I hate I hate it. I've told that
The-
before.
the-
I had to add it.
I like the.
Mm-mm.
I like the.
It's pretentious.
Well,
I don't
stay
know.
Why?
tuned,
'Cause
guys,
you're-
for
you're
the
like
next
the, you know?
Nurses Uncorked, and we're going to have the Masshole McGuido on again because I think he's just
Definitely.
become like our new special
I like
guest.
the mascot.
He's
I like the
a
little mask,
fan
you know?
favorite.
Oh,
Yes.
Thank
yes.
you. I
and
love you girls.
I honestly really enjoyed this episode. I wasn't sure exactly what we were doing when we came on, if it was just going to be healthcare violence, but the whole nurse burnout thing is such an important topic that is it goes beyond we could do a
Listen,
whole nother podcast on this.
Do what I
honestly.
do. Take
Yeah.
a cruise. Take a cruise.
I am.
Book
I'm going
nice
on a cruise in April.
She's dragging me with
which,
her.
Which?
Erica's
Oh.
coming.
Well, see, yeah, I'm aware. I would have loved to go, but that's my birthday.
Damn. Well, we'll
I'll be on a
FaceTime
cruise,
you.
but it
I
just won't
just
be
have
that
to add
cruise.
one last thing. If you are not watching our podcast on YouTube, first of all, you need to subscribe to us on YouTube, but also check out this week's because Matthew's eyes right now are like magical. I don't know the lighting or something, but I have never seen your eyes be so
You
pretty
look like a
as they
vampire
are
out
right
of
now.
Twilight. I think
You
he's
like
like a
them?
Cullen. I'm scared. The bloodsucker.
You want to know what's
fame
funny?
fucker.
I know we're wrapping it up, but I always say to William too, if I was ever gonna do like the whole wedding thing, I want that whole Bella in the forest. That's what I want to do.
Oh,
You
I
want to
love
fly
that.
through the trees?
No, can like wood and I mean I'm allergic to
love
mosquitoes,
that.
so it might not work. But
Alligators.
but anyway.
All
But
right,
thank you
yeah.
girls for having me. I appreciate
Love
you girls
you.
having me on.
You're
I love
always
you
welcome.
too. We'll talk soon. Thank
Yes,
you.
anytime. Like seriously. And now that you've got the technology figured out, you
I had help.
Well, yeah. Well, make sure he helps you next time too. Then.
I
All right.
will.
Thank you guys. Sorry that I gotta run.
Bye girls. Love
Bye.
y'all.
Till next
Wait,
time
we-
on the next Nurses Uncorked.